Hey guys, what I wanted to do today was talk about how to create and run a thread. Here's the question. What are the ways to create and run a thread? Before I even get to answering this question, what I want to do is talk about what a thread is. Now, a thread is a program's path of execution or a thread of execution. So imagine you open up a Microsoft Word document and you're able to use some of the functions within that Microsoft Word document, such as enter in letters into the Microsoft Word file. That itself is a thread. There is a piece of execution within Microsoft Word that allows you to perform a specific action. That's what a thread is. Now, what I want to do next is talk about what a process is. Now, a process is just simply a program in execution. So just imagine yourself double clicking on the Microsoft Word application and it opening up. That's what a process is. Or you could run an application in Java. That's also called a process. It's also good to take note that every process can consist of one or more threads. Another thing I want to talk about is single-threaded and multi-threaded applications. Now, single-threaded applications are not as widely used today because of the advancements of technology and how a lot of people nowadays want to get to things a whole lot quicker and perform multiple tasks at once in order to save time. So when it comes to single-threaded applications, it's pretty much an application that consists of only one thread, and it allows you to do just one thing within that application. Whereas multi-threaded applications is when multiple threads run at the same time. And this is a picture that pretty much clarifies what I mean. So, for example, this single-threaded application, this is one process and there's only one thread in it. Whereas we have multi-threaded applications, which can have multiple threads. So I want to give you an example of what a multi-threaded application is. So let's just choose Microsoft Word for right now. All right, so let's say I go to Microsoft Word and I have the ability to type in some information. Let's just type in hello world. What I just did there was handled by a thread. So it allows me to execute a specific piece of code. So when I type the key down, the words are going to appear within this application. That right there is a thread. Now, the reason why Microsoft Word is a multi-threaded application is because you can use multiple threads at the same time. So let's say I type in some text that is not a word, something like this, right? So when I do that, there is a thread that is already running in the background that is checking the spelling of what I type in. So one thread would be me simply typing in letters into the Microsoft Word file, and there would be another thread running in the background that is checking whether or not this word is spelled correctly, in which it obviously is not. So that's an example of a multi-threaded application. Another way that Microsoft Word acts as a multi-threaded application is like this. So let's just say we type in hello. Another action would be highlighting this word and then increasing the font. This is another form of multi-threading. You're able to highlight this content and then change the size of it. You can also change the font. Okay, so that's an example of multi-threading. it also explains what a thread is in general. All right, so we're done with this. Go back here. Okay. Already seen this. Now what I want to do is talk about creating a thread. So in order to create a thread in Java, the first thing you need to do is realize that there are two ways that you can go about creating a thread. One way is by extending the thread class. Now when you extend the thread class, the first thing you want to do is to simply just create a class. And after you create a class, you just simply want to extend the thread class. So for example, if we have this class that we've created called myThread, mt equals new myThread equals new myThread, then that means that this class has to extend the thread class. And that's simply how you'll go about creating a thread, by using the extends thread class. Another way you can create a thread is by creating the same class, myThread, mt equals new myThread, and within this class you would have to implement the runnable interface. After you've done that, you would have to go back to your application object or your main method and create a thread object, T, and set that equal to new thread, and then pass in the value of this object that you've created, the MT here. And then that's pretty much how you would go about creating a thread. So basically, just remember that there are two ways. If you ever get asked this on an interview, just remember that if you're ever asked, how many ways are there to create a thread in Java? You would say by extending the thread class or implementing the runnable interface. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, in order to run a thread, it's pretty simple. The number one thing you need to take note of is this mt.start. That's how you would go about running a thread. Just use mt.start or t.start. This is the most important thing that you need to know when it comes to actually running a thread. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, as I said before, if you're extending the thread class, you would simply just create the object that you've created and simply mt.start. That's how you run a thread. Now, if you're implementing the runnable interface, you would do it the same way, and you would just call the t.start. So basically, you're passing this myThread into the new thread, which is an object created by Java, and then from this thread object, you would just call t.start. So let's just get straight to the code, and I think it's going to be made a whole lot clearer for you guys. Okay, so in order to create a thread, there are two ways to create a thread. We can extend the thread class or implement the runnable interface. So the first thing I'm going to do is extend the thread class. So I'm going to right click here, create a class, and I'm going to name this class myThread. Okay. All right, so got a Windows 10 update, exit that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is extend thread. Press save, extend. No, extend. What am I doing? Extends thread. We'll save, then we go back to our application object. We then go into our main method and just simply do this. myThread equals new myThread. And that's it. That's how you go about creating a thread. Now, if you want to run this thread, you would have to go back to your class, my thread, and you would have to implement this method that is called public void run. Now this method is basically used to allow you to run a thread. It's going to be something that allows you to run a thread. So you just go public void run, and then inside this method you can just print out something like extend thread running. Alright, now in order to call this run, you have to go back to your application object and just simply start. mt.start. This is how you go about creating a thread and then running it right after. So go up here, run the application, go down here, extends thread running. Alright, so I've showed you one way. Now what I want to do is show you another way. So I've already showed you how to create a thread by using the extends thread. Now what I want to do is create a thread by implementing the runnable interface. So I'll go here again, file, new, class, my thread 2. This is another class. And as I said before in my presentation, you just simply use the implements, runnable. Now when you're implementing the runnable interface, you have to add the unimplemented method. It's going to expect a method of run. So you just simply do the same. You go back to your application object. You then want to go my thread 2 equals new my thread 2. After you do that, you want to use thread t equals new thread t.start. Now the reason we have to do this when we're implementing the runnable interface is because the thread2 class is pretty much implementing an interface. Other than using the extends thread, we have to implement the runnable interface, and then basically we just pass it inside of here, mt2. And then we just simply run the application. We have exactly what we're looking for, runnable thread running. All right. So that's pretty much it right there. Now, if you guys have any questions about this, please leave your questions in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you've learned something here, and see you in the next video.